necessary welding has been completed to get to the next step. So I've already started putting this piece in place, but I thought I would take a little video here while I do the rest. Depending on how long this lasts, this may end up being a time lapse. It's really tight right here. I'm having to push it over a little bit, and right now I just had a little bit of binding right here. I had to push this piece over, and I'm going to put something in here to make sure that when that slides back all the way, it doesn't bind up. I think we're getting there. This looks pretty promising. There's a big gap here at the bottom, which I'm hoping that once I push that in all the way, it'll close up most of that. There's a piece of magic I'm missing. I need to move that over a little bit. I think I can fit it. I just need to have the right way to push to give that little bit of extra space, and then everything should work out. I just gotta psych that out. So I'll be back. All right, the left front frame piece is back off, as I have to make a couple of adjustments. This one, you can kind of see this guy is leaning too far this way, and so it's pushing, when it slides in here, it's pushing this whole thing towards the center, which when I measured, I made some measurements here and here, right there. It was too close from this side to the matching spot on this side, and also the floor was too far over to the left. It had a good 3/4 of an inch to go to get to the side rail there. So I decided that I needed to trim just a little bit off of here, because that would give me the ability to rotate. This is like press fit. I mean, I'd use putty knives and things to get those to fit together so tight. So hopefully bending this out will relieve a little bit of the pressure, and I haven't decided yet, 3/16 maybe off of here. And then if it's too much, I can just take some of my scrap pieces and put them underneath, and then or behind, and he can weld that back together and strengthen it up that way. So I've got to work on fitment first. We'll see what happens. I'll bring you back when I have some more updates. Still not fitted, but I have a clue what I need to do next. Right here, we're too wide. Right here, we're too wide. So the top half of this needs to go in. This guy is too close to the other frame rail, so he needs to go out, which indicates that it probably needs to rotate a little bit this way. The other spot where I have a problem is right here, where clearly this needs to go over, and every time I pull on this, it pushes that forward. So I struggled with this for a little while, but eventually I came to the conclusion that this is probably in the wrong place. And so I took a measurement from here to here, and it's 24 inches on this side. It's 23.5 inches on the other side. I was also able to follow that up with getting out the cross member and putting it in here, and just seeing that this is just, I mean, I can push this over, but when you put this up, it validates that this needs to go over. So my next step is going to be to put some pressure from here to here. Since this is not attached to anything, I mean, you can kind of see it moving just from me pushing on it. I should be able to move that guy over fairly easily to free this up to allow me to rotate the entire assembly as I was expecting. It's just right here, it can't go over at all, and the lower you go, the more it needs to go over. So in order to get this guy to fit, I had to pull off a little bit of the seam sealer here, as we had an overlap there. Also, the metal was bent down there. That was causing a little bit of resistance, not too bad. This metal here, I also pulled up just a little bit. It is artificially low right now because I've got pressure on that side, but I think I've got it lined up this way correctly. I made some improvements. This distance here, is off still a little bit, but this distance here is basically spot on, which is kind of telling me that I'm a little too wide here. I need to come in a little bit, and then I'm also I still need to move out over here. So what's going to happen next is I'm going to remove this thing, and I need to move this, the metal seam here needs to go in a little bit. And then the other big problem is this guy is hitting here, and he needs to go, so this needs to go in about 1/4 of an inch, and that should allow me to rotate this way and rotate the top as I move that guy in the same axis. This one will go that way, and that one will go that way, or that one will go, the top one will go in, this one will go out. That should bring me closer to spec. I think that when I get that done, then I got to start getting serious about measurements. So this may be a little bit high yet. I'm not sure. I think it's pretty close though. And for good measure, I might bend this up just a little bit. I'm not certain that that's holding me back at this point. So those are the next steps. We'll see what that does. Still unclear why I can't get this piece to fit in all the way. So I pulled this off of the car, the original parts, just to kind of fit it, and move this over just a little bit. I feel like this is where it's making contact. I did color this with a marker, but I couldn't get a good read on where it's binding up. But I feel like this needs to go over just a little bit. I'll see if that works, if that helps. Still not done, but I'm definitely getting closer. I think what I've got right now is, you can see here, this needs to go over that way just that much, 1/4 inch maybe. And I'm pretty sure right here is where I'm binding up. So I've got to take this apart and move that over. It's gonna be fun because there's a beam inside there. but I got to move that over just a little bit to allow me to move this guy over just a little bit. I had the strut tower brace on, and the bolts line up here to the other side. Also, I've discovered that despite my prior measurements, this guy is not quite straight from here forward. It's pushed in a little bit. So once I get the frame bolted to the other 3 spots, should be pretty easy work to push this out a little bit, one thing at a time. Getting close on this frame section. Well, after much finessing and pounding sheet metal, I guess if that's finessing and adjusting, I think I've got this guy reasonably close. There's still a little bit of work to do in the center. It's off by about just a little bit. This needs to come back. I need to figure out a way to make it stay there for the welding process. But right now I've got, I mean, this bar lines up good. This distance is good. I got the level. I leveled the thing out. That's what the laser is for. And I started checking from here and on the other side, and then also up here and on the other side, and all of those are measuring correctly for height. I still have a little bit of issues, I think, in here. But what I'm going to do, you can see we're as close as we've been on all of that. Some of the major adjustments I had to make were right in here, just moving this metal in so that the whole thing would come over a little bit. I figure, I don't have my exact plan sorted out yet, but once I get that over there aligned up properly, I'll get some of the preliminary welding done here to hold this in place, the firewall and this structure, left to right and front to back, and then I'm just going to tug on this with some ratchet straps or the jack or whatever I need to do. You can see I'm pretty close to lined up here. I just need to come up a little bit. So, you know, that'll be off a little bit when I pull that center back in alignment, but I'll just, this metal has got a little bit of give to it, so I'll just tug it over. And if the floor is off by a 1/4 inch, that's not going to be a problem. What's important is up there. So I feel pretty good about what I got here. The next time you'll see it'll either be done with all the prep work or some of the welding will be done. At this point, I believe the left front frame rail section is on the car to stay. As you can see, I've put the subframe in, and all 3 out of the 4 bolts do line up. This one is off by just a little bit. I think height-wise is okay, but it needs to go out just a little bit. I kind of knew that before. And this was resolved. I ended up trimming about a 1/4 inch off of that because I thought it was too close, and so unfortunately, as I got this together, I realized that it really needed that 1/4 inch. So we have a spacer, and I took an old piece of the cutoff and adapted it, bolted it on just to hold that thing steady until it gets welded. And I've started cleaning up some of the spots that need welded. This is really pretty close now. I was a little bit concerned that this wasn't going to get there, but adding this ratchet strap here to pull up and back really brought this guy into line to the point where this is lining up really good right now. And I mean, I still have a little gap there, but I can mine that by bending. I think the sheet metal needs to come up a little bit, and then I'll just bend it over the last 1/8 of an inch or whatever. Should be more than adequate for what I'm trying to do with this. Still have some questions about how to fix this, but I figure once I get these things in place, I will, and welded and permanent, then I will figure out how to, you know, push this down or pull that up or something, and keeping in mind the distance and the placement of the cross member there for the transmission. But I think that's small potatoes compared to what's going on here. So hopefully tomorrow my son will be here to start welding this stuff back together. In the meantime, I'll clean up some more of the connections, and so that he can weld as many of them as many of the core structure ones as he has time for. Okay, so the car got a bunch of welding yesterday. It's not done yet, but the left front frame rail section is now permanently attached to the car. I don't have any jacks or straps or anything holding it in place. So I wanted to take a minute and show you my measurement process, and we'll see how this thing is looking. So the first thing I need to do here is spot the level of the car. And so I'm putting the ruler, I'm using this seam down here as the edge. And I want to put the end of that there, right on there. And you see when I push that ruler down, I'm getting something close to 10, like 9 7/8. I'm just about touching. That's the level spot. While I'm on this side of the car, I'll show you. I'm measuring here where the frame rail, or the hood hinge attaches, and do my best to hold that perpendicular. You're right around 3 3/4 on the height. This one is almost exactly 4 1/2 on the height. Now let's go look at the other side. There's not enough room in the front with the ladder. So lining that guy up with the bottom, you're coming in almost exactly 10 inches again. So that's just showing you that I have the car level. It would be so much easier if this was square, or anything was square anywhere, that I could just line up a ruler on, but I have to kind of guess based on these patterns and find an edge somewhere. So looking at the measurement now for the hood hinge mount, you see we're right just a smidge over 3 3/4, so that's very close. And this guy is just a teeny bit over 4 1/2. So we're definitely within an 1/8 here. I feel pretty good about that. And then the last update is this morning I took my order power and I pushed this over. I had to push it way over to get it to not flex back too far. But I got this now so that the front, the bumper bolts just go right in. There's no loading required. And same with that. So next time my son is here, we'll be able to weld this and make this permanent, because I've got this now shaped the right way. And then I guess I'll also put this on, and a whole lot of other things need to go on, and I don't know, hopefully in another week or so we'll be done with the fitting and welding, and assembly can start. Round one of the welding on of the left front frame section is done. All of the major contact points there and there, back here, on the inside here, and also in the center are secure. Now I'm going through the business of getting ready for the next round of welding. I've got this part here sticking out a little bit. The Charger apparently has this frame just a little bit wider at this point. I don't recommend using these parts from a Charger unless you have no other choice, because they don't fit quite right. It's close enough. This shape is all the same, so it'll be fine. It just created some extra work to get that done. Anyway, got that all trimmed up now, and we're going to do some welding underneath here on the back side to connect this seam and the inside back together. I've put a piece of metal in here. I think I'm just gonna, for the most part, panel bond the sheet metal on here, and so I wanted something for it to secure against, at least in this space. So that's how that's gonna go back together. That centerpiece is just sitting there, but it's been fitted in. It's ready to go. I've also cleaned up all the material over here, and all of this is ready to go. This has been leveled, and distance wise I believe is correct, so that can all be welded back together. I got this piece roughed in place. When you put the bolts in, this will pull up and line up real nice. I just don't want it tight now, because I don't want it pulling it forward until it gets welded down. So there's a laundry list of additional things that need to be done, and I'm just going to keep knocking them off one at a time until the welding is done here. So I think very soon I'm going to push that floor pan up, and I'm going to get this corner piece fit in here, and I'm also going to close up this gap in here. So hopefully that can be part of the next round of welding. So one of the actions I'm going to take today is to get this guy back in place. As you can see, I've basically test fitted it in here. I put the transmission cross mount in there, and the bolts are all kind of loose so things can move around, but it seems to be lining up pretty well right now. Over here you can see these are the spot welds where it was drilled out before, so it's off by just a teeny bit. I could fine-tune that just a little bit, but what's not exactly lining up is where the original Challenger mount goes to the Charger floor. So I think it's lining up, but I want to clean these spots because the spot welds that I drilled out from the Charger don't line up with the ones with the Challenger, and I have a hole here which I'll have to plug because the Charger one was longer. But that's just a little preview of what's going on here today, and then I'll probably follow up and go all the way around here and get all these pieces done. Still a long way to go. Okay, so part of the big weld is done. I'll go over all of that later, but in the meantime I decided I would fix these end plates here. They were bent up pretty good. Obviously as this car was bouncing across the barrier, they got damaged. You can kind of see right there some of the scrape marks. I don't have a template to go after. I just looked at some pictures and I think I've got that right. I can test fit the bumper reinforcement underneath to make sure that they all line up okay. This one, oddly enough, has a factory tag on it. It's almost like it had been replaced before. You can see it was also dragged across the barrier there, as well as inside here. So these were, I don't know, I probably had pictures of them earlier on, but they were pretty much folded over this way. So it took a little bit of time to get them back into operating condition. Okay, so there's been some progress, a few distractions, but progress is resuming. It doesn't look like much, but the half shafts have been replaced. And while I had the whole rear end apart for that, I also reconnected the e-brake cables. Also, there's no more parts car. I had a chance to clean it up. The weather started getting nice, and I just decided I was tired of looking at it. So that's pretty much out of here. We also have, the prior videos will showed that this has got the prep work was done here for alignment, but I've had a couple of sessions of welding here, and this part is now in place, and I started cleaning the surfaces and putting some primer and paint on them. So alignment, I think, is pretty solid. Everything's in good shape. It's going to go back together. Things are just going to bolt on. Maybe a little bit of tweaking for fender alignment, but I think generally it's pretty good. There was multiple layers of welding. Had to weld the bottom half of this on first, and then the top half. Same thing with here. There was a weld underneath, and then this window got put in. The frame, or the transmission cross-member mount, is welded back onto the car. All of the alignment is taken care of. I drilled holes in both the Charger part and the Challenger part at that point, and it just seemed easier to me that rather than welding both sides, to just bolt those in. So that part's bolted. Got all of these pieces in place, and I'm just using industrial grade paint on these. It's something I had available. These are places that you're not going to see when the car is assembled, so just something to keep them from rusting. Also, underneath here is all done, and this, I think, looks to be in pretty good shape. I had to pull the floor pan over just a little bit, but I'm comfortable with the rest of the parts aligned. I don't know what the variance was, but I think up next will be, I don't know, fun with seam sealer on a lot of these things, maybe a little more touch up, and then I can start putting parts back on the car. I think there's gonna be one more welding session, and that will be to install this panel here and a couple of other little spots that were missed.